I was lying in bed, my consciousness shrouded in a thick fog, so dense I could barely recognize the faces around me. But even in that haze, the image of Lily White's face, as pale and perfect as her name suggested, was crystal clear. It was a face so exquisite you could never forget it, a face that had haunted my dreams for a lifetime. Now, in the final moments before I was gone, it was starting to blur. As the last of my strength was being mercilessly siphoned away by death, I managed to force a final smile. I struggled to focus on her. In 50 years, I asked, my voice as faint as a feather falling in the oppressively quiet room, "Did you ever love me? Not even for a single day?" She stood there, hesitating, her lips trembling but making no sound. I already had my answer. 50 years. For 50 long years, I had been a drowning man, flailing desperately in an ocean of one-sided love, begging for the slightest sign from her. And now, as I finally slipped beneath the waves, I was still waiting. Slowly, I let my gaze drift from her face to the others in the room, our children and grandchildren. Their expressions were etched with grief, but all I felt was the crushing weight of a long, loveless marriage. Finally, as if spitting out a stone I'd held in my gut for a lifetime, I gave her my last words. If I could do it all over again, I'd never want to love you. With that, my last ounce of life force drained away. I closed my eyes, and the world went dark. Is this it? I thought. Gone for good? I don't know how much time passed, but when I woke up, I was reborn. I was actually reborn. A wave of indescribable shock and joy washed over me. God, or whatever was out there, had given me a second chance. This time, I swore to myself I would stay as far away from Lily White as possible. I would not be the moth drawn to a beautiful, destructive flame. This time, I would find my own light. The days flew by, and soon enough, it was 3 months before the SATs. The afternoon sun streamed through the classroom windows, dappling the desks with light. My classmates were buzzing about exams and gossip while I kept my head down, studying. Suddenly, the room went quiet. I looked up, curious, and saw her. Lily White. She had transferred to my school, into my class, and had specifically requested to be my desk mate. My heart seized, memories of my past life flooding back. On instinct, I slid my chair away, trying to put as much distance as possible between us. But she was on me in a second, quick as a leopard, grabbing the collar of my shirt and yanking me back. Her grip was surprisingly strong. I looked up, stunned, and saw her flash a wicked grin. "Evan," she said, her voice a low, dangerous purr. "Why'd you have to die so fast last time? You asked me a question and never got an answer." It felt like I'd been struck by lightning. When I came to again, I was back. 3 months before the SATs, back in this body brimming with youthful energy and endless possibility. I took a moment to relish the feeling of a body that didn't ache, where every cell felt alive. I glanced around at my classmates, their young faces illuminated by the sun, like a field of corn ready to grow. This was a dream. Maybe my dying wish had been so powerful it had bent reality. Since I'd been given this precious opportunity, I was going to stick to my guns. I would not get involved with Lily White. I remembered how it all started last time. The White family's company had run into serious trouble. They proposed a marriage between our two families to secure a partnership with my family's business, a life raft to see them through the storm. Lily White was a certified genius, the kind of girl who shone like a star in the school hallways. She later became a world-renowned violinist. And me? I was the slacker in the back of the classroom who barely scraped by with a degree from a third-rate college. After graduation, I did what was expected. I joined the family business and eventually took over for my dad, grinding away in the corporate world. My dad had been thrilled with the match. Lily was beautiful and poised, and me, young and naive, was completely captivated by her beauty and grace. I readily agreed. Only later did I find out that Lily already had someone, a boy she'd grown up with, the one who held her heart. But for the sake of her family's business, they were torn apart, and she was pushed into my arms. Fate is a cruel joke. After we were married, I never saw her truly happy. It didn't matter how well I treated her, how many expensive gifts I bought, or romantic dates I planned. She was an unmovable mountain of ice. That's why I had to ask that desperate question on my deathbed, and her silence proved it. 50 years of devotion couldn't thaw a frozen heart. This time, I wouldn't make the same mistake. I wasn't going to interfere with the business partnership between our families. I remembered that in a few years, the White's company would grow exponentially, far beyond anyone's expectations. And through that partnership, the Miller family business had thrived as well. So, letting them work together was fine. I just wouldn't let them use me, or her, as the price of the deal. This life, I had my own mission. hit the books, and fix the regrets of my past. In my last life, I slacked off and ended up at a college I was ashamed of. It was a constant, dull ache in the back of my mind. This time, I was going to give it everything I had and get into a top-tier university. Then, using the knowledge I'd gained over 50 extra years of life, I would fulfill my dad's unfinished dream, to take our company's products global. So, in the months leading up to the SATs, I studied like a man possessed. My classmates started looking at me funny, their gazes a mix of shock and confusion. The old me would have been the first one out the door when the bell rang, sprinting for the basketball court or sneaking a cigarette in the bathroom. Now, I was a completely different person. One day, a guy saw me hunched over a textbook after class and couldn't help himself. "Evan, what's up with you? You're not hitting the courts, not even taking smoke breaks. You possessed or something?" I looked up and grinned. I time-traveled from 50 years in the future. I blew my chance at a good college last time, and I'm here to fix it. My desk mate rolled his eyes. In his mind, a back-row slacker like me talking about getting into a top-tier school was a joke. I didn't care what anyone thought. Hell, some days I still couldn't believe I was really back. About 2 weeks later, as the setting sun painted the sky in shades of blood red, my dad called. I was still in the classroom cramming. He told me to come home early, that we had guests, and to pick up a gift for a girl on my way. I knew exactly who it was. The Whites were coming over, and Lily would be with them. Last time I got this call, I was giddy with anticipation. I spent hours agonizing over the perfect gift. We were still in high school, so makeup or a purse seemed too much. I ended up running all over town and buying bags full of things, giant stuffed animals, intricate little crafts, you name it. Her reaction? A dismissive glance, a hint of contempt, and a comment about how childish it all was. "I can't imagine how difficult life will be with someone like you," she'd said. It was like a bucket of ice water on my hopeful heart. This time, I wasn't going to be that idiot. I still bought several large bags of stuff. But this time, it was all genuinely childish. Toy cars, Barbie dolls, a remote-controlled race car. Things a 10-year-old would play with. I lugged the bags home and walked through the door. Seeing the 18-year-old Lily again still made me pause. She was just as coldly beautiful as I remembered, with an air of untouchable elegance. Last time, that look had completely undone me. This time, after a fleeting moment of distraction, I reminded myself to stay away. She's beautiful, I thought, but I know she'll never be mine, and I don't want any part of it this life. My dad saw me come and loaded with gifts, and his eyes lit up. He gave me a subtle wink, then pretended to be surprised. "Evan, first time meeting Lily, and you bring all these presents. I wish you were this thoughtful with your old man." I grunted, ignoring him, and walked into the living room, dropping the bags carelessly on the floor. Toys spilled out, and the wheel of the race car snapped off. Acting like nothing happened, I dusted off my hands, glanced at the stoic Lily, and said flatly, "My dad told me to get you something." I was in a hurry, so I just grabbed this stuff from a street vendor. "Next time I'll go to Target and get you something better quality." My dad's face went dark when he saw the pile of kids' toys. He was so mad, he grabbed a spatula from the kitchen and looked ready to come after me. But I wasn't scared. I was technically a 70-year-old man, and my dad was only 45. By rights, I was the elder here. So I plopped down on the sofa, crossed my legs, and, channeling the tone I used to use on my grandson, said, "For God's sake, act your age. We have guests. What's wrong with you?" My words hung in the air. My dad, Lily, and her parents all stared at me, completely thrown. After a moment, the red drained from my dad's face, replaced by awkwardness. "Yeah, Evan and I are close," he stammered. "We joke around like this all the time. He's just treating you like family." Lily's parents bought it, their faces breaking into smiles, as if the awkward moment had never happened. Only Lily kept a straight face, her brow furrowed. She probably thought I was still the same lovesick fool from last time, ready to be part of her family. Not a chance. I wasn't wasting another 50 years on someone who didn't love me. I walked up to her and said in a cold, detached voice, "Since you don't like my gifts, I'll just keep them for myself." I reached down to grab the toys, but she suddenly snatched a Barbie doll out of my hand. And then, for the first time ever, she smiled. It was a small, genuine smile that lit up her eyes with a spark of surprise. In a soft voice, she said, "Thank you. I love it." I was floored. She smiled? At me? It felt like the laws of physics had just been broken. My brain short-circuited. What the hell? This was insane. Utterly, completely insane. "That Barbie was for me," I blurted out. "The rest is for you." They all looked at me like I was crazy. My dad finally lost it, yelling that I had to screw loose because I was acting so bizarrely. I had hoped my behavior would tick Lily off, driving a wedge between us so we could go our separate ways. But here she was clutching those cheap kids' toys like they were precious treasures. Last time, when I gave her jewelry and designer bags worth tens of thousands of dollars, she was always completely indifferent, barely even speaking to me. Was her secret passion actually cheap kids' toys? The whole situation felt absurd. As evening fell, we sat down for dinner. My dad and her parents were like a pair of aggressive salesmen, relentlessly trying to push Lily and me together, going on and on about what a perfect match we were. I just sat there, impassive as a rock. Lily, for her part, was quiet, but I could see the resistance in her eyes. I knew she was thinking about her childhood sweetheart, a boy a year younger than her. Last time, I'd heard she was planning to confess her feelings to him after graduation, but my arrival had shattered those plans. This time, I wanted to do them a favor and stay out of it. All I wanted was to have nothing to do with Lily White. It was late when they finally decided to leave. I hadn't said a single word to her the entire evening. My dad made me walk them to the door. Just as they were about to go, Lily suddenly claimed she'd left her backpack on the sofa. My dad told me to go get it. Though every fiber of my being screamed no, I couldn't defy my dad in front of everyone. Reluctantly, I fetched her bag and handed it to her. She took it and in a calm voice said, "Thank you." She was thanking me? That had to be the biggest joke I'd heard in 2 lifetimes. I remained stone-faced, didn't respond, and turned to go back to my room. Behind me, I could faintly hear my dad making excuses, saying I'd been in a bad mood lately and that this wasn't like me, desperately trying to salvage the marriage arrangement. I wondered if my dad knew I'd died miserable in my last life. Would he still be so eager to push me toward a woman who didn't love me? The next day, I went to school as usual. Sunlight filtered through the trees, casting shifting patterns on the campus sidewalks. I walked into class and had just settled into my seat when the lesson began. Halfway through, our homeroom teacher, Mr. Davison, walked in with a mysterious smile. "Class, we have a new student joining us today." A figure appeared at the doorway, and my jaw dropped. It was Lily White. She had her hair up in a high ponytail, with a few loose strands framing her face. Her eyes sparkled like stars. Mr. Davison briefly introduced her, explaining she had transferred from Northwood High, the top-ranked school in the district, where she was at the top of her class. At a school like ours, Ridgedale High, she might as well be the #1 student in the entire school. Lily wasn't just smart. She was stunning. Dressed in a simple white sundress and sneakers, she had a fresh, clean look that made all the guys in the class lose their minds. A few of them, forgetting it was the middle of class, started calling out for her to come sit with them. The classroom erupted in noise until Mr. Davison shot them a death glare that shut them up. Mr. Davison scanned the room and noticed the empty seat next to our class president, whose old deskmate had recently dropped out due to a family issue. He was about to assign Lily there. But Lily shook her head, her eyes fixed on me. She walked straight toward my desk. She held out her hand, a smile blooming on her face like a spring flower. "We meet again," she said. "Can I sit here?" I froze, my brain stalling. Was she talking to me? Before I could even react, let alone refuse, she asked again, "Evan, can I sit next to you?" Mr. Davison hurried over, a look of panic on his face. "Lily, you don't understand," he said urgently. "Evan here is, well, he's at the bottom of our class. He tends to drag down our average. You're a brilliant student. You should sit with someone who can challenge you. Go sit with the class president. He's first in the school. You two can learn from each other." I wasn't offended. It was the truth. In high school, I wasn't a bad kid, but I was no model student either. I'd skip class to go to the gaming cafe or play basketball on the court. When it came to grades, I was single-handedly responsible for dropping our class's GPA by a few points. But since I never got into fights, the teachers usually just looked the other way. Lily, however, calmly rejected the teacher's suggestion. She smiled at Mr. Davison. "Thank you for the offer, sir, but I'd like to sit with Evan. I want to get to know him." Mr. Davison frowned, a flicker of worry in his eyes. He glanced at me, then back at Lily, and sternly warned me not to be a bad influence on her. After all, Lily had the potential to be a National Merit Scholar. As he walked away, he kept shaking his head, as if he could already see me corrupting his prized student. I get it, I thought. If Lily became a scholar, Mr. Davison would be a legend at this school, practically guaranteeing a promotion. But none of that was my problem. This life, all I wanted was to get into a good college, study finance, and use my 50 years of future knowledge to make my family's company even more successful. With that resolve, I put my hand over the empty seat next to me. "I'm used to sitting alone," I said, my voice flat. "And Lily, we don't know each other. We just met last night. You should find another seat so you don't mess up your grades." The classroom fell dead silent. Everyone stared, frozen, as if they couldn't believe I'd just rejected the beautiful, genius transfer student. Lily's expression faltered for a second, but it was quickly replaced by the proud, imperious look I knew so well. She dropped her backpack on the desk, shoved my hand away, and plopped into the seat. A defiant smirk played on her lips. "This desk doesn't have your name on it. I'll sit where I want." I'd dealt with that face for 50 years, and seeing it again made my stomach turn. I have no idea how I endured it for so long. A surge of frustration washed over me. I slammed my textbook onto the desk with a loud bang that made her jump. "Fine," I snapped. "Sit wherever you want. I don't give a damn." Then I started shoving my books and pins into my backpack. I grabbed my stuff and marched over to the empty desk by the trash cans in the corner. The spot had a faint, sour smell and was normally used to store brooms and dustpans, but I didn't care. I pushed the cleaning supplies aside, threw my bag down, and then picked up a basketball from the floor. I gestured to a couple of my friends in the back, the stars of our school's basketball team. They got the message instantly. Grinning, they followed me out to the court. Behind me, I could hear Mr. Davison yelling, "One bad apple spoils the bunch." I let it roll off my back. I wasn't corrupting his star student, and the guys I was with were already part of the spoiled bunch. Besides, who says bad students are bad people? In my memory, these guys all did pretty well for themselves. The one who did the worst still ended up buying a house in New York City. Bad grades don't define a person's character or ability. Their minds were just somewhere else. So I spent the entire morning playing basketball with my friends, skipping class. The rhythmic thud of the ball, our shouts, and our laughter filled the air. We were drenched in sweat, but we were having a blast. Around noon, after the last game, my throat felt like sandpaper. I was heading to the vending machine for an ice-cold drink when a figure hurried over. Before I could see who it was, a bottle of water was thrust into my hand. "Here," a voice said. "It's not cold. You shouldn't drink ice water right after exercising." I looked up and saw it was Lily. My friend saw her and started snickering. One of them elbowed me. "Damn, Evan, I didn't know you had it like that. We're all jealous, man." Another one chimed in. "Yeah, and it's not even cold." How thoughtful. Their teasing annoyed me. I shot them a glare. "Shut up, or I'll dunk on your heads next time." Standing at 6 feet, and as a starter on the team, I could definitely do it. I turned back to Lily, my expression turning icy again. "I don't need it. I'll have my drinks cold. And look, Lily, I know our families are working together, but forget about this whole marriage thing my dad mentioned. I know you have a childhood sweetheart you're really into, and I'm not interested in you. So let's just not get to know each other. I'll talk to my dad. It won't affect the business deal. It's better for both of us this way." I pushed the water back into her hand, grabbed my basketball, and walked away. Better draw a clear line now than to get tangled up like last time and die full of regrets. My house was only a 20-minute walk from school, so I usually went home for lunch. I was waiting at the bus stop when Lily came running up behind me, her face pale with anger. She grabbed my arm. I knew she was mad that I'd rejected her water. It was just like in our last life. The second I did something she didn't like, she'd get angry. But this time, she wasn't my wife. I wasn't going to coddle her anymore. I was about to shake her off, but she suddenly found a burst of strength. She slammed me against the bus stop shelter, her hands gripping my shoulders tightly. Her eyes were filled with a strange kind of complaint. "Evan," she said, her voice trembling with emotion, "don't think you're the only one who got a do-over. If you keep treating me like this, I swear I'll tell your dad that you're bullying your future wife." My mind went completely blank, like a computer that had just crashed. Then, the gears started turning again, slowly. It took a long moment for me to process what she'd said. Lily was reborn, too. But from our first meeting yesterday to everything she'd done today, she was nothing like the Lily I remembered. It was as if someone else had taken over her body. The Lily from my memories was a corporate queen. She was a force to be reckoned with in the business world. And as she got older, she became the matriarch of our family, wielding far more influence than I ever did. She would never show weakness in front of me, not even if the sky was falling. But I didn't have time to sort through the confusion. If we were both back, we should both be fixing our own regrets. Her family had torn her away from her childhood love, forcing her into a miserable marriage. As for me, I'd married a woman who didn't love me, and my dad had worked himself into an early grave over the company. And in the end, I had died with two massive regrets, never knowing if she loved me, and failing to fulfill my dad's wish of taking our company global. I looked Lily straight in the eye. "Lily, if you're reborn too, that's even better. This time, I won't get in the way of you and your childhood sweetheart. You don't have to get close to me just for our family's business deal. You were part of my family for a long time. You know my dad and I aren't the type to use marriage to blackmail someone into a partnership. Besides, you were a business queen last time. With your knowledge, you don't need our help to be successful again." I took a deep breath. After all, I had loved this woman for 50 years. Letting go now felt like something was being ripped out of my chest. But after the despair I felt on my deathbed, I knew I couldn't love her again. And I learned a valuable lesson. Why chase someone who doesn't love you when you could wait for someone whose eyes are filled with only you? I was ready to pour all my love into someone who loved me back, but I would never again waste it on someone who didn't. Goodbye, Lily, I said and turned to leave. Just then, the roar of a cheap engine cut through the air. I looked over and saw a guy on a beat-up dirt bike pull up in front of us. He took off his sunglasses and grinned at Lily, revealing a set of yellowish teeth. Hey, Lily, I'm here to pick you up. Why do you have to transfer schools, anyway? Now I've got to ride an extra half hour every day to get you. I recognized the guy on the bike. It was Kyle Jensen, Lily's childhood sweetheart. His family had started out with an electronics factory, but it had fallen on hard times after some bad business decisions. Even so, they were still better off than most families. Lily had been a partner in their factory starting in her freshman year of college, but she'd left for some reason. She and Kyle had grown up together, thick as thieves. Since his dad's business wasn't doing well, he'd started neglecting Kyle, who fell in with a rough crowd and became this kind of punk on a noisy bike. But he was always good to Lily. He never dragged her down with him. Maybe that's why she was so hung up on him. Even after he'd gone off the rails, he still protected her. At this point, I didn't know Kyle and I didn't want to. I gave him a quick glance and turned to walk away. Behind me, I heard Lily stomp her foot in frustration and yell, "Evan, you jerk." When I got to the crosswalk and waited for the light, I couldn't help but look back. I saw Lily get on the back of Kyle's bike. Watching them ride off, a bitter taste filled my mouth. I felt like there was nothing left for me to hold on to. She'd chosen her childhood sweetheart, after all. I looked up at the midday sun, its glare so bright it made my eyes water, and a tear slipped down my cheek without me even realizing it. So much for devotion and growing old together. 50 years of my life, 50 years of loving her with everything I had, and it still couldn't compete with the boy she grew up with. I went home and told my dad I was taking a few days off school. He was angry, but he couldn't say no. My mom had died when I was young, and he'd always spoiled his only son. After a few days, I told him I wanted to transfer. He stared at me in shock. The SATs are right around the corner. What are you talking about, transfer? And your fiancée transferred all the way from Northwood High just for you. What about her? What did I agree to that? I shot back, waving my hand dismissively. Dad, I told you I don't like her, and she likes someone else. You can't force this. If you keep pushing me, I'll jump off this roof and go find Mom. Our house was only 3 stories, but it was a good 30-foot drop. Head first, and it would be over. Threatening him with my mom always worked. I look a lot like her, and he still spent nights looking at her picture and crying. If he lost me, he'd have nothing left. He caved. Okay, calm down. I'll look into other schools for you. I finally smiled at him. That's my dad. Don't worry, once I transfer, I'll get into a great college, study finance, and come back to help you build a business. Mom will be watching over us. He was so moved he hugged me and cried for a long time. The next day, he sold me out. Lily showed up at the house. She pushed open my bedroom door while I was still asleep. I groggily opened my eyes to see her walk over to the window and yank open the curtains. Sunlight flooded the room, blinding me. Lily, are you crazy? I snapped. This is my house. What are you doing barging into my room? She crossed her arms, perfectly at ease. Your house. Your room? I lived here for 50 years. This is my house, too. And my room. She spoke with the same authoritative tone she'd used in our last life. We'd lived in this house after we got married. My room had become our room. She opened my closet, pulled out one of my shirts and a pair of boxers, then ripped the covers off me. I sleep naked, so I was completely exposed. I scrambled to cover myself. You're insane, Lily. She just smirked, looking me up and down. This habit of sleeping in the buff. Guess you picked that up early, huh? I always thought you. Get out. I roared. It doesn't matter, Lily said with a smirk. I had you under my thumb for 50 years. You really think you can escape me just because we're reborn? Her words stoked the fire in my gut. In our last life, not long after we married, I knew she didn't love me and I suggested a divorce. But she refused, claiming she was pregnant, and I figured I was stuck. This was my life now. Might as well get used to it. But fate had given her a second chance, a way out from being with me. Why was she still clinging to me? Lily, all you're doing is making me resent you, I said, my voice low and tight. You'll make me hate you. At that, she froze, standing there like a statue. I glanced at her, my heart heavy with exhaustion and resolve, and started getting dressed. My fingers worked mechanically, buttoning my shirt, my mind replaying a lifetime of being taken for granted. Pants on, I made a beeline for the door, desperate to escape. But as my hand closed around the doorknob, she lunged, wrapping her arms around me from behind. Her body was pressed tight against my back, warm and real, but all I felt was a deep-seated resistance. "Evan, I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice frantic. "The question you asked last time. I'll answer it now." I didn't let her finish. As if a switch had been flipped, I pried her hands off me. "Don't," I said, my voice like ice. "I already knew the answer before I died. I loved you for 50 years. I can't do it anymore. Please, just let me go. This life, can we just be strangers? We're only 18. Time will heal everything. You'll forget about me. You had regrets, and so did I. Can't we just go our separate ways and fix them?" Her eyes instantly filled with tears. She shook her head wildly, her hair flying around her face like a storm. "No, you're my husband. Are you really going to throw away 50 years? I swallowed hard, a lump forming in my throat. Looking at her tear-streaked face, a storm of emotions churned inside me, but I forced myself to be strong. It wouldn't be easy, but I don't want to make the same mistake again. So yes, I'm ready to throw it away." Lily wiped her tears, her expression shifting from hurt to a fierce determination. "I know you don't believe me," she said, her eyes blazing. "You took care of me for 50 years. This time, it's my turn to take care of you for 50 years. No matter what I said, she was an immovable wall. I scoffed internally. There was no way she wasn't still pining for her precious Kyle. This whole "I'm reborn too" act had to be some new, twisted game she was playing. Just then, my dad saw us coming downstairs together, and a huge grin spread across his face. "Come on, you two. I made breakfast for my son and daughter-in-law." That was the last straw. I shot my dad a death glare as if this was all his fault. I stormed over to the table, grabbed a bagel, and walked out the door without a word. To my surprise, Lily grabbed a bagel and followed right behind me. I picked up my pace. She started jogging. I broke into a run. She ran, too. When I finally stopped, winded, she stopped right with me. She was like a shadow I couldn't shake, and it was driving me crazy. How did I never realize how annoying she was in our last life? For the next 2 weeks, this became my reality. She was with me everywhere. When I went to play basketball, she sat quietly on a bench nearby, the hot sun beating down on her as she watched my every move like a loyal guardian. When I went to the gaming cafe, she'd come in, get a computer next to me, and watch movies while surrounded by the noise and smell of smoke and instant ramen. She even waited outside the bathroom for me. The entire school was buzzing. No one could understand why the super genius, the untouchable goddess, was suddenly orbiting around me, the class slacker. Vicious rumors started to fly, that I was some rich kid and she was a gold digger trying to lock me down. But Lily didn't care about any of it. She ignored the gossip and just kept following me, as if I were the only person in the world who mattered. Then one day, I woke up and she wasn't at school. At first, it was strange, but then a wave of relief washed over me. Without her constant presence, the air felt fresher. I felt free. The quiet lasted all day. She never showed. I figured something must have come up. It was the last Friday of the month, right before a 2-day break, and with college applications looming, everyone was on edge. A few of my friends from other classes asked me to hang out, saying that once we all went off to different colleges, we wouldn't get many more chances like this. With Lily gone, I happily agreed. We ended up at a local pizza joint. It was a bit of a dive, but the slices were huge and cheap, perfect for a bunch of broke high school kids. We sat around a table piled high with food, talking and laughing. By the time we finished, it was after 10 p.m. The streets were quiet, bathed in the dim yellow glow of the streetlights. Our group was standing on the curb, trying to hail a cab. Suddenly, one of my friends slapped my shoulder hard. "Evan, look," he said, pointing toward a hotel down the street. "Isn't that Lily White? The girl who's been chasing you for the last 2 weeks." I followed his finger and saw her. Lily and Kyle Jensen walking out of the hotel, laughing together. Their smiles seemed to glitter under the streetlights, sharp and painful, like 2 knives driving straight into my heart. A sharp pang of something, jealousy, disappointment, shot through me. For the past 2 weeks, Lily had been so different, so unbelievably kind, that I'd started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, she really had loved me in her last life. Looks like I was a fool again. Just then she spotted me. The color drained from her face. She looked like a kid caught with her hand in the cookie jar. She quickly recovered and started running toward me, her steps frantic. Kyle followed, a confused look on his face. I couldn't stop a bitter laugh from escaping. We hadn't even graduated high school, and she was already this desperate, stringing me along while hooking up with her childhood sweetheart. If I remember correctly, she was just turning 18. Kyle was a year younger, riding around on that stupid dirt bike without a license, running with a bad crowd. What kind of guy was that? Birds of a feather, I guess. Lily ran up to me, out of breath. Seeing the ice in my eyes, she started to explain. "Evan, listen to me." "Are you kidding me, Lily?" I cut her off, my voice dripping with anger. I told you before, you got a second chance. Go be with your precious Kyle. Why are you still messing with me? At that moment, a cab pulled up. I threw out my hand to stop it, shot her one last cold glare, and jumped inside, telling the driver to just go, to get me away from there. As the car pulled away, I watched the streetlights blur through the window, and despite everything, tears started to stream down my face. I had loved her for 50 years. You don't just turn off a love like that. Seeing her with another man coming out of a hotel, even though I'd always suspected it, seeing it with my own eyes was a tidal wave of pain that threatened to drown me. Why do I keep doing this to myself? I thought, if I want to stay away from her, why does my heart still care so much? When I got home, I felt like a ghost. My dad heard the door open and rushed to greet me, his eyes full of hope. Where's Lily? Didn't she come back with you? For the past 2 weeks, Lily had basically moved in, staying at our house and going to school with me every day. We were inseparable. Hearing her name felt like a punch to the gut. I let out a long sigh, releasing all my frustration and exhaustion. I looked at my dad, my face a grim mask. I need to go away for a while, I said, my voice flat and cold. I'll be back for my finals. My expression must have been terrifying because my dad, who knew me better than anyone, didn't argue. He opened his mouth to say something, then closed it. He just nodded silently. He didn't offer to buy my ticket, which was just as I expected. Knowing him, if Lily asked later, he'd tell her exactly where I'd gone. I had a reason for this. My dad once told me that my mom's only wish had been to see the ocean. In her last life, he never got to take her. After they were both gone, I fulfilled his final wish and scattered their ashes at sea. But this life was different. I couldn't bear the thought of my dad dying young again. So it was up to me to take my mom to the ocean. I took the urn with my mother's ashes and booked a late-night flight. As the plane soared through the sky, my mind was filled with memories of her. After I landed, I traveled from one city to the next, carrying her urn along the entire coast. Each city had its own beauty, some with soft, golden beaches, others with dramatic, rocky cliffs where the waves crashed with a thundering roar. Finally, I arrived in Santa Monica, California. This was where my mom had been born. She had left it all behind for love, marrying my dad against her family's wishes. My mom was an amazing woman, brilliant and kind. Our family's cosmetics company owed much of its success to her formulas and creative ideas. That was why my dad's lifelong dream had been to make our brand a global name, to let her legacy shine on the world stage. The last rays of sunset painted the beach in a soft, golden light. I sat on the sand, holding my mom's urn, staring blankly at the disappearing sun. The salty sea breeze tangled my hair, but it couldn't clear the sorrow from my heart. Nearby, a mother and her teenage son were sitting on a bench. The boy looked about 15 or 16, his face still soft with youth. He was hunched over, his eyes red and swollen, looking utterly devastated, like he had just had his heart broken for the first time. "Mom," he said, his voice choked with tears, "why doesn't the girl I like me back? Will any girl ever like me?" His eyes were full of a lost, helpless confusion, as if he was facing a riddle with no answer. His mother looked at him with infinite tenderness. She reached out and gently stroked his hair. A soft smile touched her lips. "Sweetheart," she said, "the first time I saw you, I was a 20-year-old girl, and I fell in love instantly." Her words hit me like a physical blow. A dam inside me broke. All the memories I'd tried to bury came rushing back. Tears streamed down my face, hot and unstoppable. I thought about my own life. 50 years loving a woman who didn't love me back. 50 years where she was the center of my universe, where I gave her everything and got nothing in return. If my mom were still alive, how heartbroken would she be to know I had wasted so much of my life on a hopeless love? I could almost see her pained expression, and I completely lost control. Tears and snot ran down my face as I clutched the urn. "Mom," I sobbed, "what did I do wrong? I loved her for 50 years. Half a century. I poured every ounce of love and energy I had into her. I would have done anything for her, been there for her, through thick and thin. But her heart remained a fortress of ice. Am I just not meant to be loved?" I whispered, "Mom, I miss you so much." My tears fell onto the cool metal of the urn, each drop a testament to my pain and regret. Suddenly, I heard another sob next to me. Then, I felt another hand close over mine on the urn. A familiar voice, thick with tears, said, "Mom, don't worry. This life, I'll take good care of Evan. I swear it." I whipped my head around. It was Lily. Her face was a mess of tears, her hair disheveled. She was clutching the urn with me, crying her eyes out. I was so shocked I started to get up, but before I could move, she threw her arms around me. "Evan," she cried, "please just give me a chance to explain. I'll say everything. And if you still want me to leave, I promise I'll never bother you again. I stood there, stunned into silence, just holding my mother's urn and watching the last sliver of sun disappear below the horizon. It felt like the last glimmer of hope for my love. Lily knew I was giving her a chance. She wiped her eyes, which were red and raw. Taking a deep breath, she began. Evan, I know you've always thought I loved Kyle. Last life and this life too. But you're wrong. So wrong. I never said I liked him. I don't know who told you that. Yes, we were childhood friends. We grew up together. But that doesn't mean we had to be in love. In the beginning of our last life, I didn't like you. You know why? Because I didn't want to be a bargaining chip in my father's business deals. That's why I was so cold to you. But later, after I got pregnant, didn't you notice I started being nicer? When you asked for a divorce, I said no. I'm a woman, Evan. We're stubborn. We don't always say what we mean. Couldn't you see that? The reason I said no was because I was already starting to fall for you. She paused, taking another shaky breath. You have no idea how stressful it was back then. Managing both of our family companies was like carrying a mountain on my back. I had to deal with business and then fly overseas for my violin concerts. I was always exhausted. When I came home, all I wanted to do was sleep. And I never liked those fancy designer bags or jewelry. Haven't you ever noticed? The ring and bracelet I always wore. They were the ones you bought me the first time we ever went shopping together. Those cheap little things from a street vendor meant more to me than all the expensive brands in the world. Her words were like a key unlocking a forgotten room in my memory. I suddenly realized it was true. Our house was filled with expensive jewelry, but she only ever wore those two simple pieces I'd bought her from a kiosk at the mall. Seeing me lost in thought, she continued, we spent decades together. Even a mountain of ice would have melted by then, and I'm not made of ice. You were so good to me. How could I not feel anything? Do you remember, before you died, you asked if I ever loved you? I hesitated, but it wasn't because I didn't love you. I've never been good at expressing my feelings. Even when I was old, I was just trying to figure out how to put everything I felt for you into words. And then you just left. As she spoke, Lily started crying again. She began to gently punch my chest, a mix of anger and sorrow in her movements. Why did you have to die so fast? She sobbed. You didn't have my permission to die. I never even got to tell you. Do you know what happened? The day you died, I cried all night until I couldn't even open my eyes. I cried myself to sleep, and when I woke up, I was back here, reborn. This time, I didn't want to wait for you. I wanted to be the one to find you. But you bastard, you were so mean to me, so cold. Her voice softened slightly. After that day on the basketball court, I knew you were reborn too. I know last life was hard on you, because of me. But do you think it was easy for me? I gave you 2 sons and 2 daughters, Evan. And I helped you run Miller Industries. Couldn't you have tried to understand me, just a little? She collapsed into my arms, a sobbing mess. As I listened, the gates of my memory swung open. It was true. Despite her coldness toward me, she had always been fiercely dedicated to our family. When the White family's company became a giant in their industry, she made sure Miller Industries rose with them. Aside from her attitude toward me, she had been a perfect partner in every other way. I looked down at the woman weeping in my arms, and a complex mix of emotions washed over me. I sighed and gently started rubbing her back, trying to calm her down. After a long while, her sobs subsided. She looked up at me, her eyes puffy and red. What you saw at the hotel, it wasn't what you think. Kyle's grandparents came into town from the countryside, and his family's house was too small. I was just helping him get them a hotel room. That's all. Kyle was just with me. I swear, there's never been anything romantic between us. We're just friends who grew up together. He sees me as a big sister. If you don't believe me, we can go back home right now, and you can ask my parents, our old friends, everyone knows. Last life, I had heard the rumors that her parents had forced her to marry me and leave her childhood love. But I had never bothered to investigate it myself, letting the resentment fester into a massive wound in my heart. Now, hearing her earnest explanation, I felt my defenses start to crumble. Seeing my hesitation, Lily pulled out her phone and made a call. Get over here now, she barked into it. A few moments later, Kyle came jogging over from behind a nearby lifeguard tower, looking out of breath and disheveled. Lily immediately wrapped her arms around my waist, as if staking her claim. She looked at Kyle and ordered, "Call him bro-in-law." Kyle, looking slightly terrified of her, gulped and mumbled, "Sup, bro-in-law." Then Kyle explained everything. His parents were barely around, and if it hadn't been for Lily keeping him in line, he wouldn't just be some punk on a dirt bike. He'd be a full-blown delinquent. He also confessed that he had a crush on the daughter of a woman who owned a local comic book shop. They were the same age and had already promised to get married when they were old enough. Everything suddenly clicked into place. I remembered in our last life, Lily had invited me to Kyle's wedding. I had been sulking and refused to go, so that's who he married. He'd had his heart set on someone else all along. The girl's mother hadn't approved of him at first, but to win her over, Kyle had gone back to school and even managed to get into a decent state college. Only then did she give them her blessing. With all the misunderstandings cleared up, it felt like a massive weight had been lifted from my chest. By now, the sun had completely set and the sky was dark. Lily looked at me, her eyes shining with hope. "This life," she said, her voice full of conviction. "I'm not going to play the violin. I want to help you fulfill our dad's dream. I want to help you take our mom's cosmetics brand and share it with the world. Evan, will you give me that chance?" Hearing her say that filled me with a warmth I hadn't felt in a long, long time. I hugged my mom's urn to my chest and started walking toward our hotel. After a few steps, I noticed Lily hadn't followed. I turned back. She was standing there, watching me, her gaze full of love and anticipation. "Well, are you coming?" I called out. "It's getting cold out here. I don't want you to catch a cold." A radiant smile broke across Lily's face. She ran over like a happy deer, looping her arm through mine and resting her head on my shoulder. Just then, Kyle trotted up to us, looking awkward. "Lily? Bro-in-law? I'm not old enough to get a room myself. What should I do?" Lily pointed down the beach with a mischievous grin. "There's a nice cozy spot under the pier over there. Tonight is a very important night for your bro-in-law and me. You're on your own." With that, she eagerly pulled me toward the hotel. A few months later, on a bright, sunny day, I stood smiling at the 2 acceptance letters in my hand. With only 3 months to study, getting into a top-tier university had been out of the question. I managed to get into a good state school. Even as a reborn person, cramming that much in so little time was nearly impossible. And that was with Lily's help. Without her, I probably would have ended up at a community college. As for Lily, with her heart full and her mind at ease from our rekindled love, she had aced her exams, earning a perfect score on her SATs. She was the top student in the state. But she turned down offers from Harvard and Yale, choosing instead to go to the same university as me.